Let's begin. But first, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to The Broken Truth. Evelyn Parker sat alone in the soft glow of the living room lamp, her hands resting on the swell of her 8-month pregnancy. The apartment was silent except for the distant hum of city traffic, a stark contrast to the emptiness that had taken over her heart. She had imagined this night differently, like so many before, her husband Jason at home, attentive, perhaps rubbing her back or talking quietly about baby names. Instead, the apartment was cold, the spaces between the furniture echoing the absence of the man who had promised to stand beside her. Outside, the skyline twinkled with lights, reflecting on the dark waters of the marina where Jason's yacht glided effortlessly. On board, laughter mingled with clinking glasses, the music low but intoxicating, a reminder of the carefree, decadent world Jason had chosen over her. His mistress, perfectly coiffed and dressed for the night, leaned against him with a familiarity that made Evelyn's stomach churn. The thought of their closeness, of him being attentive to anyone but her, felt like a betrayal too sharp to swallow. Inside her apartment, Evelyn pressed a hand to her belly, feeling the baby shift and kick as if sensing her distress. Anxiety gnawed at her chest. She tried to focus on breathing, telling herself she was strong, that she could handle whatever life threw at her. Still, waves of fear washed over her. What if something happened during the night? Who would protect her and the child? Jason, meanwhile, lounged on the yacht's deck, oblivious to the storm brewing at home. He believed that responsibility could be postponed, that indulgence and secrecy were harmless if carefully managed. Every sip of champagne, every whispered joke with his mistress, reinforced his sense of invincibility. He had convinced himself that he could maintain his double life without consequence, unaware that each moment of neglect deepened the fracture between him and Evelyn. Evelyn's phone lay untouched on the couch, buzzing occasionally with messages she didn't check. She felt the weight of abandonment press down, a physical ache that mirrored the emotional wound Jason had inflicted. Luxury surrounded him, but she realized that comfort without loyalty was hollow. She wrapped a shawl around her shoulders, shivering not from the cold, but from the bitter taste of betrayal, knowing that tonight, the divide between them had grown impossibly wide. Evelyn had just settled into the couch with a warm blanket wrapped around her when a sudden, sharp cramp shot through her lower abdomen. She gasped, clutching her belly instinctively as another wave followed, stronger and more insistent. Her heart skipped a beat. The baby, usually calm during these late-night hours, now kicked frantically, as if sensing the sudden tension in her body. Fear gripped her chest. This wasn't just discomfort, this was labor. She struggled to steady her breathing, trying to remain calm despite the escalating pain. Another contraction came, making her knees buckle slightly, and she pressed a hand against the couch for support. Alone, she felt vulnerable in a way that pierced deeper than physical discomfort ever could. Her mind raced, the hospital route, the midwife, the pediatrician, the baby bag she hadn't fully packed. She was 8 months pregnant, not 9, and the thought that her labor could progress rapidly terrified her. Immediately, she reached for her phone. Jason's name appeared on the screen, but each call went unanswered. Voicemail. Another call. Another ignored attempt. Panic bubbled up inside her, sharp and insistent. He was unreachable, lost in his world of indulgence on a yacht somewhere miles away, oblivious to the crisis unfolding at home. Her chest tightened with a mixture of fear and fury. How could he prioritize anything over the life growing inside her? Desperation forced her to call her mother, her voice trembling as she explained the situation. Her mother's tone was a mix of concern and urgency, and she promised to get help immediately. Evelyn's friend, who lived nearby, was also contacted. Minutes felt like hours as she shifted from the couch to the floor, trying to manage the contractions and focus on breathing. Every kick, every cramp reminded her that she had to stay strong, not just for herself, but for her unborn child. The contrast was unbearable. Jason was laughing, carefree, immersed in luxury and pleasure, while she fought a private battle of survival and endurance. Sweat beaded on her forehead, and her hands trembled as another contraction hit, sharper than the last. She gritted her teeth, willing herself to stay upright. Alone, in pain, yet determined, Evelyn realized just how stark the divide between her reality and Jason's world had become. Her fear and vulnerability were raw, immediate, and undeniable, while his indulgence continued, unaware, indifferent, and careless. Evelyn's friend, Mara, arrived within minutes, breathless and anxious, ushering her into the waiting car. The night air was cold, stinging her cheeks as another contraction gripped her. Mara kept a steady hand on the wheel, but the city streets seemed to conspire against them. Every red light, every slow-moving car, every honking horn became a reminder of time slipping away, of urgency escalating with every second. "Just breathe, Evelyn," Mara urged, her voice calm but strained. "We'll get you there. Everything's going to be okay." Evelyn nodded, though her body trembled, sweat beading at her temples. She pressed her hand over her belly instinctively, whispering reassurances to the unborn child inside her. Each contraction was a sharp reminder that she had to stay strong, to hold herself together no matter how much fear threatened to consume her. The ambulance was delayed, caught in an unexpected traffic jam, leaving Mara to weave through the streets cautiously yet as quickly as possible. Outside, the sky had darkened, clouds threatening rain, a storm echoing the turmoil within Evelyn. She gritted her teeth, refusing to give in to panic, yet memories surged unbidden. She recalled evenings when Jason had promised to be there for her, nights spent imagining him holding her hand during labor, whispering words of comfort. She had trusted him completely, believing that love and commitment would see them through every challenge. And yet here she was, alone, scared, fighting for herself and her baby, while he basked in luxury with another woman. The betrayal hit her again, a sharp, unrelenting pain alongside the physical contractions. She felt anger, hurt, and disbelief, all mingling with the fear that she might lose control, lose her child, lose everything she had hoped for. Mara's voice pulled her back, a lifeline in the storm of emotion. "We're almost there," she said. Evelyn nodded again, gripping the seat, teeth clenched, heart hammering. She repeated a silent mantra to herself, a promise to survive, to protect, to endure. Every pulse of pain, every anxious thought, only reinforced her determination. She was fighting not just for the life she carried, but for the independence and strength that betrayal had forced her to discover. Damien Cross sat in his high-rise office overlooking the city, the glow of multiple monitors reflecting off his sharp features. A man of precision and power, he was used to reading patterns, predicting outcomes, and acting decisively when needed. His attention was drawn, as it often was, to the neighborhood he kept under discreet surveillance, anonymously, professionally, and always with purpose. It was here, through a subtle alert from a hospital system integrated with his security network, that he noticed unusual activity, a heavily pregnant woman in distress, clearly alone, struggling to reach help. He leaned back in his leather chair, analyzing the situation calmly. He didn't know her personally, and yet, instinct told him that intervention was necessary. This wasn't about curiosity, fascination, or any romantic impulse. It was about ensuring justice, safeguarding life, and preventing negligence from turning into tragedy. His keen sense of responsibility, honed through years of corporate and personal vigilance, recognized that someone had failed in their duty, and someone needed to step in. Damien instructed his team quietly but firmly. "Prepare transport. Keep it discreet. Ensure she reaches the hospital safely." The words were clinical, devoid of emotion, yet carrying absolute authority. His team moved efficiently, executing the plan without fanfare, respecting privacy while prioritizing protection. As he watched the monitors, Damien's mind traced scenarios, anticipating every potential complication, traffic, medical delays, or interference from uninformed parties. He prepared contingencies, every action precise, every decision calculated. Outside, he imagined the chaos of fear and labor, no partner present, uncertainty overwhelming, pain unshared. It was unacceptable. Not because he sought reward or recognition, but because some failures demanded correction. Damien Cross would intervene, ensuring safety, justice, and integrity, proving that sometimes power and vigilance were not tools for dominance, but shields for those most vulnerable. The city streets blurred past as Evelyn gripped the seat in Mara's car, each contraction stabbing deeper, leaving her breathless and shaking. Her vision swam with sweat and exhaustion, and a sudden, overwhelming wave of dizziness hit. She gasped, clutching her belly, trying to steady herself, but her knees buckled, and she slumped sideways, the car jerking as Mara swerved to keep her steady. Panic flared in Mara's eyes, but she was trained to remain calm, murmuring reassurances and pressing the phone to her ear, calling for emergency backup. At that exact moment, Damien Cross monitored the situation from a discreet location nearby. His security team, already in motion from earlier alerts, received the call. Within minutes, black SUVs and a sleek limousine appeared, cutting through traffic with urgency yet care. Damien's team approached the vehicle with precision, gently but firmly assisting Evelyn into the private transport. Every movement was calculated to avoid stress or further injury. The drivers accelerated with controlled speed, sirens muted to prevent chaos, navigating city streets with the expertise of those trained for emergencies of the highest stakes. Evelyn's body trembled with exhaustion and fear. Each contraction now felt unbearable, the pain sharp, relentless, almost cruel in its timing. Her hands clutched Mara's as they whispered encouragement, but the terror of being alone with no Jason to hold her hand pressed heavier with each passing second. Damien's presence, though unseen, radiated through the careful orchestration of his team. Every decision, every maneuver, ensured she would reach medical attention safely. Arriving at the hospital, the team guided her through a side entrance, bypassing the waiting rooms and public areas. Nurses and doctors were already prepared, rushing forward with equipment and IVs, stabilizing her immediately. Oxygen, monitors, and rapid assessments followed, all while Damien observed quietly from a distance, ensuring privacy and safety. Evelyn felt a strange relief amidst the pain, a reassurance that someone, finally, was taking her welfare seriously. As she was admitted to the labor ward, still trembling, still in pain, a calm authority enveloped the room. Damien's team remained discreet, protective, and ready to act. For the first time that night, Evelyn felt she was not entirely alone. Her struggle, her vulnerability, her fight for her child's safety were acknowledged, respected, and guarded with precision. In that carefully orchestrated chaos, the line between disaster and survival was drawn, and she had crossed safely into the latter. Jason Parker lounged on the polished deck of the yacht, the soft sway of the waves beneath him almost hypnotic. The night air was warm with the scent of champagne and salt water, mingling with the soft laughter of his mistress beside him. The city lights twinkled in the distance, but Jason's focus was singular: indulgence, distraction, and the thrill of secrecy. He believed himself untouchable, wrapped in the illusion that he could evade responsibility and consequence, at least for a few hours more. His phone buzzed intermittently in his pocket. He glanced down lazily at the screen, noticing Evelyn's name flashing repeatedly, but he swiped it away, dismissing each call and message with a flick of his thumb. "She's probably overreacting," he muttered to himself, a smirk forming as he sipped his drink. The yacht's music pulsed softly through the night, each beat reinforcing his sense of detachment, his confidence that the night, in his double life, was secure. Yet subtle signs began to ripple through the insulated bubble of his world. A friend on the yacht mentioned an unusual news alert, a hint of curiosity in their voice that went unexamined by Jason. Gossip floated across the decks in hushed tones, a fleeting remark about a local emergency near his neighborhood, which he ignored. His phone, still buzzing persistently, began to display notifications from unknown numbers and urgent messages from mutual friends and family, all left unanswered. A subtle unease crept into Jason's mind, though he refused to acknowledge it fully. There was a whisper of doubt, a flicker of anxiety, quickly smothered by self-assured arrogance. He rationalized it away: someone else was overreacting, exaggerating, or simply trying to stir drama. The idea that the crisis could be real, that Evelyn could be in danger, never fully formed in his consciousness. As the yacht cut through the dark waters, Jason remained blind to the storm approaching, oblivious to the life and death urgency unfolding on shore. Every laugh, every sip, every careless glance at the horizon reinforced his arrogance. Karma, quiet and deliberate, was circling ever closer. He could feel the first tremors, missed calls, hints of gossip, but he still believed he could slip through unscathed, unaware that the consequences of his neglect were about to collide with reality in ways he could neither control nor escape. The labor was relentless, each contraction sharper and more consuming than the last. Evelyn Parker's body trembled under the intensity, but her mind remained focused, determined, and unwavering. She gripped the hospital bed rails, breathing through the pain, murmuring encouragements to the tiny life inside her. Every movement of her child was a reminder of the reason she had to endure, to fight, and to survive. She was not alone, though absent from her bedside was the man who should have been her support. Jason's negligence had left a void, but it also reinforced a fierce independence that now coursed through her every action. Damian Cross's team maintained a discreet presence, coordinating with the medical staff efficiently and unobtrusively. Their role was protective, ensuring that no interruptions or unauthorized visitors could disrupt the process. Damian himself remained just outside the room, observing silently, a composed figure who ensured that Evelyn's safety and privacy were absolute. His presence was a shield, not a crutch. He provided security, resources, and vigilance without undermining her autonomy. Hours passed in a rhythm of exertion, breathing, and medical precision. The nurses guided her through the process, offering encouragement, adjusting monitors, and preparing the delivery area. Doctors moved with calm urgency, each action coordinated, each instruction precise. Evelyn followed their lead with a clarity born of necessity, using every ounce of strength to bring her child safely into the world. Finally, the first cry split the air, a sharp, pure sound that carried the weight of survival and triumph. Tears streamed down Evelyn's face, mingling with sweat and relief. She reached for the infant, cradling the child against her chest, marveling at the tiny, perfect features. The baby's eyes blinked open, and Evelyn's heart swelled with an overwhelming mix of love, exhaustion, and triumph. Far away, Jason remained on the yacht, completely unaware that his child had arrived, that the life he had ignored now existed independently of him. The contrast between his oblivion and Evelyn's empowerment could not have been starker. She had endured, protected, and created life on her own terms. Her strength, resilience, and clarity shone brilliantly in the absence of the man who had forsaken his duties. For the first time, Evelyn understood that independence was her true power, and the birth of her child marked not just a beginning, but a reclamation of her life, her dignity, and her unshakable resolve. By the following morning, the story had exploded across every social media platform, news website, and gossip column. Photos from the yacht, leaked by a careless guest or a paparazzi drone, circulated widely. Jason Parker, laughing, carefree, arm draped around his mistress, champagne in hand, oblivious to the storm he had left at home. Comments poured in from all directions, dissecting his choices, mocking his priorities, and condemning his negligence. The image of luxury and indulgence clashed violently with the reality of Evelyn giving birth alone, creating a firestorm of public outrage. Corporate emails and office gossip spread even faster. Colleagues who had once smiled politely at Jason now whispered behind closed doors. Investors questioned his judgment, business partners reconsidered agreements, and his social circle began to distance themselves. The facade of charm and control that had once defined him crumbled under the weight of undeniable evidence. Meetings were postponed, calls went unanswered, and for the first time in years, Jason experienced the sharp sting of accountability. Friends and acquaintances reached out, not to console him, but to offer praise and admiration to Evelyn. Messages of support celebrated her strength, her courage, and her ability to endure such extreme neglect. Social media hashtags began to trend, lauding her bravery while ridiculing his irresponsibility. Every post, every story, every comment reinforced a narrative Jason could no longer control. He had failed spectacularly, while Evelyn had triumphed. The contrast between the two worlds could not have been more pronounced. Jason's laughter-filled indulgence on the yacht became a symbol of betrayal and privilege misused, while Evelyn's quiet resilience, her fight for her child, and her dignity in the face of abandonment earned her genuine admiration from strangers and friends alike. By midday, Jason's phone rang incessantly, calls from colleagues, family members, and acquaintances demanding explanations. Every message he ignored, every attempt to downplay the affair, only intensified public scrutiny. Meanwhile, Evelyn rested with her newborn, shielded by Damien's discreet presence, completely insulated from the chaos that now consumed her husband. Public exposure had arrived, swift and unyielding, proving that choices have consequences, and that true strength shines brightest in moments of abandonment, betrayal, and adversity. Jason Parker finally returned home the next afternoon, the yacht ride over, the alcohol and indulgence having dulled his senses but not his arrogance. He expected the apartment to be the same as he had left it, dimly lit, quiet, waiting for him to assert control. What he found instead stunned him. The space was orderly, but there was an air of independence, a calm authority that seemed to radiate from Evelyn. She sat in the living room, the newborn cradled in her arms, eyes sharp and unyielding. The woman who had been anxious, fragile, and dependent was gone. "Evelyn," he started, voice laced with false concern, but she raised a hand gently, cutting him off. Her gaze did not waver, and the calm strength in her voice silenced him before he could continue. "Jason, I think it's clear who you really care about, and who you don't," she said, her words measured, deliberate. She made no move toward reconciliation, no hint of emotional pleading. Her focus was entirely on the child, on her recovery, on the life she had reclaimed in his absence. The confrontation escalated only in his mind. Jason tried to argue, to shift blame, to demand attention, but it was futile. Evelyn's independence was a shield, her confidence impenetrable. She had prepared for this moment emotionally and legally. Public exposure had ensured that his reputation was already crumbling. Corporate inquiries were underway, colleagues had been briefed, and social circles that had once enabled him now distanced themselves. Every threat, every plea he could muster only emphasized how powerless he had become. Legal actions had been initiated quietly but decisively. Custody arrangements, protection measures, and public acknowledgement of his failings were all in motion. He could no longer manipulate the narrative. His status, once a symbol of dominance and control, was reduced to whispers of scandal and derision. As Jason stood there, powerless and exposed, the weight of karma pressed down. Evelyn's strength, resilience, and determination had rewritten the balance. He realized too late that betrayal had consequences, and that the woman he had ignored and humiliated now existed entirely outside of his control. Karma had arrived, swift and undeniable, and Jason was left to witness the consequences of every selfish choice he had made, powerless to undo what he had destroyed. Evelyn Parker slowly settled into a new rhythm of life, one that was no longer dictated by fear, neglect, or betrayal. The apartment she now inhabited was modest compared to the life she had shared with Jason, but it carried a warmth and safety that luxury had never provided. Mornings were quiet yet purposeful, filled with soft sunlight filtering through the windows, the gentle coos of her newborn echoing across the room. Each day was a step toward reclaiming herself, and with every passing hour, her confidence and emotional stability grew stronger. The bond between mother and child deepened with astonishing speed. Evelyn marveled at the small milestones, the first smile, the tiny grasp of her finger, the rhythmic breathing that signaled health and vitality. These moments, intimate and tender, were hers alone to cherish. No longer overshadowed by neglect or betrayal, she felt the profound strength of her own resilience, recognizing that she had survived not just for herself, but for this new life in her arms. Damien Cross remained nearby, a silent guardian who ensured that no external threat could disturb her fragile recovery. His presence was deliberate but unobtrusive, protective yet entirely platonic. He never overstepped boundaries, never inserted himself where he was not wanted, providing security, resources, and reassurance without overshadowing her autonomy. Evelyn valued this careful balance. It allowed her to rebuild on her terms, to regain control over her world, and to redefine safety and trust in ways that were entirely her own. As she began exploring her professional life again, taking small steps to re-engage with her career, she found her confidence returning. Decisions came easier, her judgment sharper, and her voice carried a clarity it had lacked for so long. Social interactions, once a source of anxiety, became opportunities to assert boundaries and cultivate meaningful connections. Evelyn understood now that independence was not just a state of being but a form of empowerment, and she embraced it fully. In this new chapter, Evelyn's life was defined not by the betrayal she had endured, but by the courage, resilience, and determination she displayed every single day. She had rebuilt her world, nurtured her child, and discovered a strength that would carry her forward, unshakable and uncompromised, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Jason Parker sat alone in the dimly lit living room of his once shared apartment, the echoes of laughter from the yacht nights still clinging to his memory. The events of the past week played repeatedly in his mind like a cruel montage: Evelyn's labor, the public exposure of his affair, the relentless criticism from friends, colleagues, and social media. Every scene was a reminder of his failures he could not undo, no matter how fervently he wished he could. He recalled the countless evenings he had dismissed Evelyn's discomfort, the nights he chose indulgence over responsibility, the hollow excuses that had once seemed sufficient. Now, faced with her absence and the undeniable reality of her strength, those justifications felt empty and pathetic. He had missed the most important moments, her final weeks of pregnancy, the labor itself, the birth of his child. Each memory of neglect, each conscious choice to prioritize pleasure over family, compounded the weight of his regret. Jason's mind drifted further, realizing he had also squandered the opportunity to support, protect, and love his family in ways that mattered. The bond with his child, which he had assumed would be immediate and intimate, was now forming without him, in the presence of those who had earned Evelyn's trust and respect. The thought of watching from the sidelines, powerless to influence the life he had helped bring into the world, brought a bitter pang of sorrow he had never experienced before. Meanwhile, Evelyn's journey unfolded in stark contrast. Every obstacle she had faced, Jason's betrayal, her isolation during labor, the emotional toll of abandonment, had forged her into a figure of resilience and dignity. She had faced fear and uncertainty head-on, navigating each challenge with courage and self-respect. Her ability to reclaim control, to nurture her child, and to rebuild her life became a silent testament to her strength. Jason, engulfed by public scorn and private shame, could only observe from afar. The lessons were brutal, undeniable, and permanent. He had lost more than trust, he had lost the opportunity to be the partner and father he might have been. Evelyn's triumph, her unwavering dignity, and her newfound independence were the proof that while betrayal can wound, courage and self-respect can transform the aftermath into a story of empowerment, a story Jason could no longer rewrite. A year had passed since the night that had shattered Evelyn Parker's world and reshaped it entirely. The echoes of betrayal, the harrowing labor, and the public scandal had faded into memory, replaced by a life she had meticulously rebuilt from the ground up. Her career, once paused during the final months of pregnancy, had regained momentum. Promotions, accolades, and recognition flowed steadily, a testament to her perseverance and professionalism. Evelyn moved through her days with a quiet confidence, a calm strength that radiated from her in every meeting, every interaction, and every decision she made. Her child, now a healthy and thriving toddler, had become the center of her universe. Each milestone, first words, tentative steps, laughter that filled the apartment, reminded her that she had not only survived but flourished. Evelyn marveled at the tiny person who embodied resilience, hope, and love, all born from a journey of struggle and courage. Raising her child had taught her patience, fortitude, and the true meaning of unconditional devotion. In every moment, she felt the triumph of reclaiming her life, her independence, and her joy. Meanwhile, Jason Parker existed on the fringes of this renewed world, powerless to influence it. His career had suffered irreparably under the scrutiny of public exposure. Former colleagues distanced themselves, business opportunities vanished, and friends who once supported him now regarded him with disdain or indifference. He watched from afar, a spectator to the life he had forsaken, haunted by memories of decisions that had cost him trust, respect, and love. Every achievement of Evelyn's, every smile of her child, was a reminder of the life he had abandoned. Yet, despite his presence, or lack thereof, Evelyn's life was unshaken. She had cultivated boundaries, strength, and independence so robust that Jason's shadow could not penetrate them. She walked her path with dignity, embracing the lessons learned from betrayal, the power of resilience, and the rewards of self-respect. As the sun set on a quiet evening, Evelyn held her child close, gazing out the window at a world that was now hers to navigate. The story of her suffering had transformed into a narrative of triumph. Betrayal had consequences, and strength, courage, and unwavering resilience could turn even the deepest wounds into a foundation for empowerment. Karma had arrived, full and undeniable, and Evelyn Parker had emerged victorious, a woman who had reclaimed her life, her child, and her destiny with unshakable grace. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to The Broken Truth.